It only took one finger point for the entire playoff atmosphere to change. One frustrated star, one shocked fan, and suddenly, the biggest Fever win in years had a bizarre subplot that nobody saw coming. Allisha Gray, the Atlanta Dream's veteran leader, wasn't just battling the Indiana Fever. She ended up battling the crowd, security, and, some would say, herself. The controversy over a heckle has now blown into one of the strangest playoff storylines in recent memory. So what really happened? Did a fan actually cross the line, or did Gray simply crack under playoff pressure? Let's break this down, piece by piece.
And to speak their piece to the security. Security found out, oh, you didn't say anything at all, actually. Yeah, come back to your seat. Let me just wipe that seat off for you. Here, please, have a seat, ma'am. Allisha Gray played like absolute you-know-what last night and decided to take it out on a fan.
You couldn't have scripted a wilder backdrop. The Indiana Fever were finally back in the postseason, for the first time since 2016. That's almost a decade of waiting, of losing seasons, of rebuilding, of empty seats. Gainbridge Fieldhouse was packed, electric, desperate. The fans weren't just watching a game, they were reclaiming pride. Meanwhile, Atlanta came in hungry, knowing they'd already stolen Game 1. A win in Indiana could have closed the door on the Fever's miracle season. But let's add another layer. Indiana was shorthanded. Caitlin Clark ruled out. Sophie Cunningham, out. Cydney Colson, out. Khloe Bibby, out. Aari McDonald, out. That's nearly half a rotation missing, and most teams would have folded on the spot. Instead, Indiana's players took it personally. Every possession was a fight. Every rebound was war. And in that kind of setting, emotions don't just run high, they boil over. Which brings us to Allisha Gray. Midway through the fourth quarter, with the Fever pulling away, Gray suddenly turned her attention away from the floor. Cameras caught her pointing into the stands, visibly agitated. She gestured to security, called out what she thought was an offensive remark, and demanded action. Security responded quickly. 2 Fever fans, decked out in blue and yellow, were escorted out of the arena. The crowd was stunned. Commentators paused. For a moment, the game itself felt secondary. Had something truly vile been said? Was this another case of fans crossing the line with athletes? That's how it looked at first. But then the story unraveled. Almost immediately, fans on social media began pushing back. One of the ejected spectators insisted he hadn't insulted Gray at all. In fact, according to multiple eyewitnesses, the line was simple. "You're good, Lex. She's not even trying anymore." That wasn't even directed at Gray. It was meant as encouragement to Lexi Hull, the Fever guard who had been defending her. No profanity, no insults, just standard playoff chatter. And here's the kicker. Those fans were quietly allowed back into their seats later in the game. Security reportedly told them it was protocol to remove them temporarily to diffuse tension. If they'd actually crossed the line with something offensive, no way they'd be back before the final buzzer. This turned the whole thing on its head. To really understand why Gray reacted the way she did, you have to look at her night on the court. Stat line: 4 for 16 shooting, only 13 points, multiple turnovers, foul trouble. For a player who's usually Atlanta's most steady hand, it was a brutal outing. Meanwhile, Indiana's defense, led by Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston's interior presence, had her locked up. Every miss, every bad possession chipped away at her composure. So by the time a harmless fan comment floated her way, Gray wasn't just reacting to words. She was reacting to an entire night of frustration. Pressure had built up, and the lid finally blew off. Of course, the internet wasted no time turning this into a spectacle. Clips of Gray pointing into the stands went viral across X, TikTok, and YouTube. The reactions split into 2 camps. Camp 1, fans should never cross the line. If she felt disrespected, she had the right to call it out. Camp 2, this was soft. It wasn't heckling, it wasn't disrespectful, she just couldn't handle the heat. Hashtags like #SoftGray and #Overreaction started trending. At the same time, others defended her, saying athletes deserve protection, especially in heated playoff moments. But the damage was already done. The narrative had shifted away from Atlanta's playoff hopes to whether their star had just embarrassed herself on national TV. This wasn't just a sideline distraction, it had ripple effects. Indiana didn't flinch. Instead, they fed off the energy. Kelsey Mitchell poured in 19 points, Aaliyah Boston anchored the paint, and the Fever rolled to a 77-60 win. Atlanta, on the other hand, looked rattled. Gray's frustration seemed contagious. Shots stopped falling. Communication broke down. And just like that, the Dream's momentum evaporated. Instead of walking away with a commanding 2-0 series lead, they were now headed back to Atlanta with everything on the line. Here's where it gets even more interesting. This isn't the first time a player versus fan moment has blown up into controversy. In 2004, the infamous Malice at the Palace showed how quickly fan-player interactions can spiral out of control. In 2021, Russell Westbrook had popcorn dumped on him in Philly, sparking a league-wide conversation about fan behavior. In the WNBA, there have been smaller incidents, heckling, courtside dust-ups, but nothing at this stage of the playoffs in years. The difference? Those were clear-cut cases of fans crossing the line. This one feels different. This one feels like a player under pressure, misinterpreting a harmless comment and creating a storyline that overshadowed her team's performance. For the Dream, this is dangerous. The playoffs are about mental toughness, and the optics of Gray losing focus don't look good. For the Fever, it's fuel. Indiana fans are now more energized than ever, knowing they can rattle opponents just by being loud. And without Caitlin Clark, that unity is everything. Game 3 in Atlanta isn't just about basketball anymore. It's about whether the Dream can recover from a narrative that paints them as mentally fragile. Here's the takeaway. Playoff pressure doesn't just test skill, it tests composure. Allisha Gray is an all-star caliber player, but in this moment, she let frustration win. And when that happens in front of a sold-out playoff crowd, the fallout is massive. The Fever proved something bigger than just winning a game. They showed they can thrive without their superstar, silence doubters, and even turn controversy into momentum. Meanwhile, the Dream have to answer tough questions, not just about their game plan, but about their mental toughness. So, did a fan cross the line, or did Allisha Gray simply mishear, misinterpret, and miscalculate? Either way, the moment is locked in as one of the strangest playoff subplots in recent WNBA memory, and it leaves us with the ultimate question heading into Game 3. Will the Atlanta Dream bounce back? Or did Allisha Gray's meltdown already hand the Fever the mental edge they need to finish this series off? If you're riding with the Fever, drop it in the comments. I've got the Fever. And if you think the Dream can flip the script, say Dream still alive. Either way, Game 3 will tell us everything.